Talofa lava and welcome to Musical Exegesis, where today we look at the hymn Though the Mountains May Fall by the Michael Jackson of Catholic music, Dan Schutte. Welcome back to Musical Exegesis. If you're new here, it's a place where we reflect upon our favourite songs that we hear at Mass, and what we try and do is we try and use exegesis to unpack and uncover what God is trying to say to us in the hymn. So for today's episode, we are looking at Though the Mountains May Fall by the great Dan Schutte, the Michael Jackson of Catholic music. Look, my memories of Though the Mountains May Fall, it was a fairly recent song I heard in the past 8 years, and it was when I was at Oak Hill College as youth minister. So Though the Mountains May Fall was always a great entrance song to start Mass. You know, everyone's energetic and you got the men and gusto, and I remember my boss, he would always sing this song passionately, and I'm like, this is a great song, And you just listen to the lyrics: though the mountains may fall and the hills turn to dust, yet the love of the Lord will stand. I mean, God's showing his power here. The song is a badass song, man. It's awesome. Forgive me, God. I shouldn't be saying that, but it is a mean song. All right, so let's look at the artist. So Dan Schutte. Why do we call him the Michael Jackson of Catholic music? Look, we can say that because over the past 50 years, he is like an international musician. Most parishes around the world use his music, and he continues to be an influence. Dan Schutte, he's known as a renowned musician for the Catholic Church and other churches as well, I believe. Dan Schutte is part of the Jesuit community, where he also uses Ignatian practices and spirituality. Now, a lot of people have criticism over Dan Schutte's music because obviously, we're not part of the folk era, so I can understand that. But one thing you cannot deny, and I think if you look at his background, is that he really discerns, what he's writing in his songs. One thing you can't fault about Dan Schutte, and one thing I respect about him, is his use of scripture. And with this song that we're going to unpack, he uses scripture quite a lot. In terms of the year it was composed, it's between 1975 1979, so in that 70s era once again. And Dan Schutte is still alive and kicking today, and look, he's still making great music. Look, just type in YouTube and you'll get a glimpse of who Dan Schutte is and what he's doing. Awesome fella. So what we're going to do now is we're going to listen to the hymn, we're going to react to the lyrics, and then we're going to give a bit of the exegesis. Just to give you a bit of context, Dan Schutte has said on occasion and on the OCP YouTube channel, the song Though the Mountains May Fall is based on the writings of the book of Isaiah. Now, the context of the hymn is the Israelites are in captivity and they're in Babylon. And what Isaiah is trying to tell them, or Deutero Isaiah, he's trying to give them hope that although everything looks bad, looks grim, that the Lord is still with them. Okay, enough about that. Let's get into the song. Let's listen to it. Awesome. Now, we look at the book of Isaiah that connects to the refrain of the hymn. So the mountains and the hills kind of refer to Zion and to the temple of Jerusalem. It is destroyed, but what Deutero Isaiah is reassuring the people is that God is still with them and he stands alongside them. And it's a recurring theme in this hymn. All right, let's continue. I don't know about you, but every time I've heard those lyrics, though a mother forsake her child, I'd like, yo, ain't nobody abandoning my child. I'm going to lay the smackdown in that jabroni. But I guess what Isaiah is trying to unpack in this first verse of the song is that God's love is unlike any other. Obviously as humans, we fall short, we sin, and we don't have this unconditional love that God has. And for the people who are in captivity, it's a reassurance that God's love is more unique than any other. Alright, let's continue on. Now, once again, we look at Isaiah, and this is earlier in the verse, or in the chapter, I should say. Now, when Isaiah presents these prophecies to make it easier for the Israelites to understand, he compares God's relationship with Israel with husband and wife, with God being the husband and Israel being the unfaithful wife. Look, that doesn't mean anything in today's context. That could be a husband, could be a wife, could be anyone. Now, obviously, the wife has been unfaithful, or Israel has been unfaithful to God. And although Israel has done wrong in God's eyes, it doesn't mean that that relationship is fractured forever or permanently. God, distances himself for a while because he's angry, but eventually God will take Israel back. As we, gather later on, with the covenant between God and Israel. And as Catholics and Christians, we believe that that covenant continues with Jesus Christ. Awesome. Let's continue. Now, with this verse, once again, we look at Isaiah. So it's an earlier chapter before the verse 1 in the refrain. So what God is saying to Israelites, he's saying to not give up hope. Even though everything looks bleak and hopeless, God will give them their strength. So he's telling the Israelites to hold out in hope. And, things will start working in their favor again, obviously with the grace of God. Let's continue. Ah, what a great fourth verse. So the fourth verse, Deuter Isaiah, he takes it all the way back, a throwback to Genesis, and he looks at Noah and the flood. And he reminds Israelites, even though their situation now looks bleak, now I'm just repeating what I'm saying, but if you look at the example, Jerusalem, represents, creation in the beginning of time, when God had destroyed the earth of the flood because, everyone sinned. But although that event occurred, God promised to Noah that his covenant will stand with him and that he will fulfill his promise in being in covenant, with his chosen people. And, for anyone that was in captivity at the time, they can look back and say, hey, actually God was with us. He's there with Noah, he was there with Moses, he was there with David, and he continues to be with us today. So let's finish the song, and then we'll add some final reflections. Awesome, cool, pretty fast going. Awesome. Just like to give a shout out to 77ELDO or 77 Aldo for that rendition of the song, Though the Mountains May Fall. So I'll put a link in terms of his channel and the hymn that we've just listened to. So, what we gather from this hymn, what's God trying to communicate with us? Well, he's trying to say, no matter what our circumstances are, the challenges that we face, the anxiety, the depression that we're in, it may seem like that there's no hope and there's no way out. But, although the mountains may fall, the hills turn to dust, our lives can be in such a mess. Although we may not have our support from our family and our friends, God will always be there for us. And I think, as Christians today, we always have to remember that, it's not our own effort, that we actually rely on the Lord, and the Lord, always fulfills his promises. And that's something that really resonates in my heart, and I'm sure it's the same for you as well. Thank you for listening to this episode of Musical Exegesis. Look, if you have any songs that you'd like us to cover, please write it down in the comments below. If you love this video and you learned something new about Dan Schutte or this song, please subscribe. Otherwise, have a good one, and we'll catch up with you next time. Let's go.